Good afternoon. It's rare for me to do two of these in such a short period of time, but there's something else that I think needs discussing, and I think in the future I'm going to divide these and have a stream of just tech stuff and just other stuff. But I am going to read to you from the English transliteration of a very ancient document. The document is the Mahabharata. It is part of the Hindu Holy Scriptures. It predates the Bible by 1,050, a lot of years, including the Torah. It predates the Torah. I'm going to read you a couple of paragraphs, and we're going to go from there. Gurkha, flying a swift and powerful Vimana, which was an aircraft, hurled a single projectile charged with the power of the universe. An incandescent column of smoke and flame, as bright as 10,000 suns, rose with all its splendor. It was an unknown weapon, an iron thunderbolt, a gigantic messenger of death, which reduced to ashes the entire race of the Vrishnis and the Andhakas. The corpses were so burned as to be unrecognizable. Their hair and nails fell out. Pottery broke without apparent cause. The birds turned white. Within hours, all foodstuffs were infected. The soldiers threw themselves into streams to wash themselves and their equipment. Now, there are people who believe, and Robert Oppenheimer, without whom the modern nuclear age would be very different, believed that this was an eyewitness account of an ancient nuclear war. There is some evidence to support this, but that's not something I'm going to discuss. Whether that was an actual description of a nuclear blast, or whether that was incidental, precognitive without the normal meaning of that, a fantasy that exactly resembles reality. That is exactly what we saw with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Today, many years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the United States alone has enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world multiple times over. Russia, although it's not clear that the weapons that they inherited from their parent, the Soviet Union, are all still operational, has enough nuclear weapons to do the same. France, England, India, probably Pakistan, North Korea, China, all have significant nuclear arsenals. The description of people with their fingernails falling out and their hair, radiation sickness, of course, but that only begins. The infected foodstuffs, the whole 9 yards. When I was young, many people, my parents' age, built bunkers. My parents did not. And it was for the very simple fact that although we were in a rural area, 50 miles from the nearest city, they looked at the likelihood of survival. They believed there was, and it turns out there was, a Category 1 nuclear target in that city. But even if there hadn't been, the spreading cloud of disaster would have poisoned the food and the water. Water will get clean quicker than food. Would have caused gross mutations. Humanity would have died. And everyone understood this at the top. Many people at the bottom were trying futilely to create a situation where they and their families could survive. But the people at the top, here in Russia, all knew. And they called it mutually assured destruction, MAD. And it, more than anything else, probably prevented anyone from launching nuclear weapons. Because if we had launched, Russia would have launched. If Russia had launched, we would have launched. And the human race would have died. Now, it is not clear that there are enough nuclear weapons in Russia anymore. There may be. But I knew a defected Soviet scientist who said that without the ongoing structure and bureaucracy of the Soviet Union, most of them weren't being maintained, and they were designed to fail if they weren't maintained. I'm not sure how that works. It's not my field. However, it is almost certainly true that a non-limited nuclear exchange would result in the death of humanity, and a horrible death, particularly for those who survived the initial blasts. Hair and nails falling out, eyes melting, slow, agonizing death as the very cellular structure of the body gave up and came apart. Horrific, horrible, and final. There are very few professionals, in fact, none that I know, and I know a significant number of professionals in psychology and psychiatry. None that I know, regardless of their political persuasions, and some are Republicans, do not believe that Donald Trump is mentally ill. Was mentally ill while he was president. The thing that most often gets mentioned is narcissistic personality disorder, which I think he clearly has, but it's not my field. Paul Ryan thought he had it and spent time researching it. There is now an attempt by the Republican Party, or by elements of the Republican Party, to call General Milley, himself a lifelong Republican, a traitor for putting in place a stopgap to prevent Mr. Trump, while he was president, from launching a nuclear first strike. Something that would have precipitated the end of the human race, the death of every person that could possibly hear this, either immediately or in agony over weeks or months. This isn't a video game. This is who and what we are, and all we have. That is playing politics at a completely unacceptable level for either party. Let me be clear, I have never thought that any single person in any single country should have the unilateral power to launch a nuclear strike. And I certainly think that putting in place restrictions to prevent a man who is not well, or a woman who is not well, from launching one is particularly important. If it had been Barack Obama, or if it were Joe Biden, and they had evidenced in public the types of behaviors and malfunctions, whether people like it or not, that Donald Trump evidenced, I would support strongly the same actions that Milley took. If we are not going to take away the unilateral power to launch nuclear war from all of the presidents, leaders, dictators, whatever in the world that have nuclear arsenals, then we should certainly control it when they show evidence of insanity. And we should stop, regardless of our political affiliations, pretending that the people on our side can't evidence insanity, particularly when by symptom they do. Thank you. I will be attempting to divide these in the future between the two things, technology updates and discussion of world events. Have a good day and be well. Goodbye.